Everyone, and welcome back. I've got an amazing guest for you guys today. We've got Kate Small, and she is just an amazing individual that just loves getting outdoors. She's got a family. She does predator hunting as well as regular hunting, I guess you'd call it. Some people consider predator hunting different, but we'll get into that in a little bit because I want to highlight that and kind of how you go about that approach. But Kate, who are you for those of those in the audience that don't know who you are?
Oh gosh. Well, I'm no one, but I'm a nurse that likes to hunt, and I hunt wolves as kind of my main thing. As you mentioned, predator management is very important to me, and so that's my main focus. But I do regular other hunting as well, but predator management is what really hits home for me.
Oh, for sure. So, man, it's crazy. I've interviewed a lot of people, and there's a lot of the women that I interview are nurses. And so it's interesting. Maybe I need to dive down that rabbit hole a little bit more in the future and figure out why that is. But maybe it's just because nurses take kind of a rugged individual to begin with because you're dealing with so much stuff on a daily basis. My mom was an RN. She is an RN, and she prefers peds. And so,
Ooh,
I
that's
don't
a
know how
tough
she
one.
does it. Yeah, I don't know how she does it. She was in charge of the oncology clinic. She was the lead nurse in the oncology clinic for Primary Children's Hospital.
Ooh.
Um, and I'm like, I don't, yeah, I can't, I don't know how you deal with that. And yeah. So anyway, it takes a special person, but yeah, I'll have to maybe do some kind of research or whatever about why
Yeah, that let
so
me
many
know what you
women
find out.
yeah, why so many women hunters or nurses. But no, that's amazing. You've created this lifestyle that you can go out and hunt. Um, you've got a career as well. You have a family, like all of these things. You're not just one of those people that's like just making money off of YouTube and Instagram. Like you actually have a 9 to 5 that you're working on. So I guess where did you start hunting or even getting into the outdoors? When did that start for you?
So I started very late in life. Well, I guess very late compared to most people. I grew up in a family that didn't hunt. We didn't own guns, anything like that. And then my mom, when I was 19, she married my stepdad, and he hunted. And around that time, I had always played sports throughout my entire life. And around that time, I'd stopped playing sports and I needed an outlet. And I had always loved the outdoors, and hunting just intrigued me. And so I he invited me to come along, and I did, and it just changed my life. I loved it. I loved getting that time with him, and we it was something we could really bond over. And so I started late, and so it's been a learning process. It's always harder to learn something as an adult, I think, probably because you're a little more nervous, and but it's been amazing. I love it now, and it's turned into really a lifestyle at this point, and it has changed mine and my husband's life dramatically. So,
Yeah, no, for sure. And does your husband hunt? You said he's the one
yes,
that you
yes.
got into it really with. Okay, that's awesome. So, that's really impressive. There's a lot of mixed feelings about adult onset hunters that I like to call them because I'm one of them as well. My just briefly, I didn't really get into it. I had a hunting and fishing license, a lifetime hunting and fishing license my whole life in North Carolina. My great grandpa had the foresight to buy that for me when I was born, back when they still sold them. Um, and I just used the fishing portion. I just didn't really have anyone that hunted. And I think I went out maybe twice. And I didn't like the idea of using a gun out of a tree stand when there's like literal shooting lanes for different feed. And I was like, this is kind of like it's a step up from slaughtering cows, but like I felt like it for me, nothing against people
Yeah,
that do that. But for me,
absolutely.
I loved animals. I still do. I was gonna be a vet one day and like it didn't seem right. It didn't seem like fair chase to me. And no one bow hunted where I grew up. And so at least not that I knew of. And so that was for me why I stayed away from that until I came out west. So I consider myself an adult onset hunter as well. Um, but there's mixed emotions. I want to dive into this a little bit because there's people out there that are like, well, you have to teach your kids and they have to be the ones that carry it on. We don't need to let anyone else into the community that's already oversaturated, etc. And what's really funny is they obviously don't listen to my podcast, the people that have messaged me this, but I'll post about something, an adult onset hunt or whatever, and I'll get messages. Oh man, this is so stupid, blah, blah, blah. And I'll listen to them rant. And then I just kind of like, okay, I'm like, I appreciate your opinion. I wouldn't be doing what I was doing if I didn't get into hunting as an adult. And that kind of shuts them up. They're like, oh, there's good people that aren't in it for just clout or whatever you want to call it.
Absolutely.
And so it's cool to see that that's something for you as well, that you've just gone headfirst and all in. So you haven't hunted your whole life, yet you still are into predator management. And that's something that I feel like I'm personally getting into a lot more now. Learning how to do it. It's a whole different style of hunting. And then just having been on a couple myself, I know the benefit for the ungulates, for people that don't know what an ungulate is. So that would be the deer, elk, that type of animal, the non-predatory animal that we hunt. There's so many benefits for us to go out and hunt bears and wolves and cats as well, because there's not really anything that hunts those animals.
Yeah.
So what got you into wolf hunting after so many times? I mean, you haven't hunted hardly your whole life at all, so you started getting into wolf hunting. What started that? What got that going?
Well, so when I first started hunting, I'm from Oregon. Now I'm in Idaho, but I'm from Oregon, and I started hunting with my stepdad there. And you'd see wolf sign and not a lot of ungulates. And in Oregon, you're not allowed to hunt wolves. And so when I moved to Idaho and I kept getting more and more into hunting, I found out you can hunt wolves in Idaho and you can do something about predator management and try to help. If you're taking an ungulate, I think it's super important to help with predator management as well. And so that's kind of, I had the opportunity to do it. And where in Oregon, I've seen the devastation that wolves can do. Obviously, we've seen it here in Idaho as well, but in Idaho, they at least give us the opportunity to try and mitigate it.
So why would that, I mean, just kind of dive into that a little bit more. Why is that so important for you? Why is it so important to take time out of your busy schedule with family, work, and your hunting on top of that, to add on to that predator management? Like for you personally, why is that such a strong deal for you?
So for me personally, I have two small children, and hunting is so important in my life. And the bond I have with my stepdad over it, and not only that, but hunting teaches, it's like a moral compass, and it teaches ethics and following rules and being respectful towards other hunters and people. And also, it pushes you to your limits, and it teaches you it's okay to fail, but you have to keep trying, and eventually you'll be successful. And so I wanted my children to be able, I wanted to raise them hunting just to have those guidelines and kind of shape them in with those standards. Whether they continue hunting later on in life, that's up to them, but I wanted something that early on gave them those morals. And watching the ungulates diminish, I quickly realized, hey, hunting may not be a possibility for my children. It could get shut down if we don't have this ungulate population. And so I wanted to do what I could to help preserve hunting for the next generation.
I think that's an amazing explanation, because it really is something that, you can't really put into words. People don't understand, because I'm a firm believer of you eat what you kill. And you
Yes.
obviously don't eat wolves. I mean, I guess technically you could. It probably is not going to taste good at all. I think I saw a meat eater episode where they tried coyote one time, and they were just like, first bite, he was like, nope,
It's a
like
no-go.
no thanks. But I've had mountain lion. I have yet to have bear. That will be hopefully soon. And my wife is like deathly afraid of it. She doesn't really do game meat to begin with, but she's like heard about trichinosis and tularemia and all this other stuff that can come from
Yeah.
bears if you don't cook it properly. And so anyway, obviously don't eat bears or wolves, but you eat the bears and the cats, and the cat tastes good. I liked it,
Bear,
and
I've
we
never had
made
cat, but bear tastes wonderful. We always
mm,
eat bear, so
awesome. Yeah, the mountain lion is a lot like pork. It's the other white meat. It actually cooks white, like it comes out like a
yeah.
almost a chicken or a turkey or pork. You have to obviously cook it well done, so we usually put it in either chili or we did curry one time, and so it turned out really good. Um, and it just tastes like pork. I mean, it's a little sweeter. Anyway, it's good. So for people out there that haven't tried it, obviously do your research, know how to cook it, make sure you don't get sick from it, because they are predators. They eat meat. They can pick up things from deer and elk that, or other animals,
Yeah.
bacteria, because they'll eat rotten meat, etc. So anyway, wolves, it's a huge deal. They say we don't have them here in Utah. I I joke, I'm like, yeah, because they don't want to deal with us Mormons. But like, there's no way that Idaho and Wyoming and Colorado all have issues, but we don't. Like, that just,
Yeah,
they
they're
don't
not
follow
chopping at the
borders. Yeah.
boundary line. They're like, "Oh, it's Utah. We're not
Yeah.
supposed to
Yeah. They're like, oh man, they might try and
start
convert
moving
us
around."
if we go in there. Yeah. Yeah. So I laugh at that because, there's no way they just don't want to deal with a management program right now. So, um, and so obviously that's all speculation. Don't, whoever's out there, don't quote me on that. Send it to DWR and get me all banned and crap. But it's good that you guys you realize when you moved to Idaho that was something that you wanted to take on. You look at it from a perspective of you want your kids to be able to hunt. And that's another perspective I hadn't really looked at, but that makes sense. Especially after the winter that we had this year. I don't know how Idaho was. I know we got hit really bad. There's a lot of deer and elk die off just from the winter alone because we
Yep.
got like 50-year records on snow, this year. So, helping take care of I guess the predator population is a big deal. So that's awesome. Where did you learn how to do it? Because hunting wolves is a whole nother, that's a whole nother category of things to learn. Where did you start your process with that?
Well, we had been looking into it. Wolves were something we were like, gosh, it would be neat to learn. Not a lot
Mm.
of people do it. And then I was lucky enough. Luke Sterling, I don't know if you know who that is, but he's in Montana. He's a big wolf hunter, very successful. He reached out and invited us to come up with him. And so
Oh,
he's just
awesome.
a wealth of knowledge. And then the rest of it came from a lot of failure. And, just like with any hunting, you fail a lot before you're successful, unless you're lucky, which I'm not.
Hmm.
Uh, but it's just a lot of failure and a lot of learning behavior and what different howls mean and their patterns and how to find packs and how to catch up to
Mm.
those packs. And it was just a lot of time and effort and failure.
Right. Okay. No, that makes sense. Yeah. So just trial and error. It's a lot like, I mean, hunting ungulates is there's certain things that you can look for, but you definitely have to learn, even though there is sign like when would be the best time to be there in the certain area, why you want to be there, etc. So it sounds pretty similar. But
Yeah.
wolves are so well. How do you go about doing it? Do you prefer rifle? Obviously, a bow would be pretty intense and probably impossible. Um, can you run dogs? Like what do you do, to hunt wolves?
So the way we do it, wolves are difficult, and it's
Mm,
because they're so intelligent. They have a very large territory. Their territory is 250 square miles.
mm,
They can move up to 100 miles a day. They're quick. They're hard to track. So we, I'm not just going to go out to the woods and start arbitrarily hiking and hoping I run into a wolf. Usually,
right.
I'm looking for tracks, and then I'll start howling to try and locate them to see if they're even close. Oftentimes, wolves now in Idaho are hunted very frequently, so sometimes they don't even howl back anymore because
Mm,
they're so smart that once they're pressured, they learn very quickly.
I
And
figured it out.
but usually I'm looking for tracks, or now we have people that'll tell us, "Hey, there's a pack. go after them, because we have a lot of ranchers around here that just are sick of having their cattle killed and stuff. And then we also trapped as well, and that
Hmm.
was kind of a learning experience in its own too. So
Gotcha.
yeah, I
Cool. So
wouldn't just go
you
out
kind of mix it
hiking.
up. Yeah. Yeah. No, that's awesome. Cause I think, I mean, the most that I've seen is maybe like Brian Call, Gritty. I've seen a couple of other videos online as well, but it doesn't really seem like, other than trapping, like you kind of have to know the area and know that they're there.
Yeah.
And that takes a lot of time, that takes dedication, that takes being up in the mountains as frequently as possible. So that's a whole nother, I just can't imagine how much time you're able to be up in the mountains to be able to figure out these wolves. And you have success pretty frequently. I mean, it's not like you're going up there and you're like, whatever, today was a whatever day. You're pretty successful at this.
Well, thank you. Yeah, we've moved to we used to live in the Boise area, and about 3 years ago, we just love it. My husband and I both just loved hunting so much. We wanted to move closer to public land. So we've moved to a small town in eastern Idaho, and it gives us the ability to be out in the woods more. Um, but gosh, last year's trapping season, what you have to check your traps every 72 hours, and we
Mm-hmm.
have a 5-year-old and a 2-year-old, and so it was really a full-time job for us. And my husband works 2 weeks of the month out of town, and so we were driving 2 hours every 3 days to hike in 5 miles to check our traps, and it's just something you have to love to do.
Yeah. No,
you
seriously.
it's it you have to make the time and make the effort if you want to do that.
Wow. That's crazy. I can't imagine. And yeah, I know there's a rule there for you have to check every 72 hours. I guess it depends on the state. I know different states have different rules, but
Yeah.
and that's crazy. And then what do you end up doing, just for people that are curious, what do you end up doing with the wolves when you're done with them?
So we don't, like you said, we don't eat the meat. I guess you could. I'm not, I guess, brave enough to try it.
Yeah.
But I've had people say, well, I'll try it. So next wolf I get, I'm going to send a little bit of meat to those people to see
All
what
right.
they think. But we just skin them out, keep the hides. And right now we just have a bunch of hides. We haven't done anything with them. I want to get a couple of mounts, but right now it's just for predator management.
Yeah.
And
No,
I
for
don't know
sure.
if I'll ever eat one. But
No, but that's awesome, honestly. And that's a, I don't want to say taboo subject, but it depends on who you are speaking with, whether they agree with you on it or not. Because there's those hardcore hunters that are just like, you got to eat everything you kill. You're just killing for fun, killing for sport. And then there's the other people that actually understand why you'd be out there doing it. Um, there's so much that goes into it, and I don't have all the numbers up here in front of me right now, but they really can't. I mean, I can't imagine the job of a DNR or DWR agent, a Division of Wildlife Resource agent, that will go out and try and count wolves, or coyotes, or bears. Like, it's so difficult to keep track of that, on top of elk and deer and all the other populations you got to keep track of. It's an estimated guess, it seems like. Now, I don't know their strategies behind it, but it seems like an estimated guess. Um,
yes, I
yeah.
would agree with that. They use collars. Um, they use a camera system, and this
Hmm.
is in Idaho. I'm not sure about other states. And the camera system is based on a grid. So they're putting these cameras just where the grid tells them to. It's not necessarily where the wolves will be. And then we have the Selway and the Frank Church Wilderness that a friend of mine that's in Fish and Game says they don't even count because it's
Mm.
so vast and so far back there. And so I don't think we truly have an accurate number of wolves. And so it makes it difficult because we are overpopulated. And that's one of
Mhm.
my arguments when people are like, why would you hunt wolves? Well, I'm not out there hunting them just to kill things. It's because we have too many. And so, deemed by US Fish and Wildlife, we're over our maximum carrying capacity for wolves. And so that means our ungulate population will continue to decrease until the wolf population decreases.
Mm-hmm.
And wolves are different than, I hunt bears as well. But wolves are different in that sense because they breed every year. They're not just having
Right.
1 or 2 pups. They're having between 6 and I've heard as many, as 13 that people have found in dens. And so, and left unmanaged, the wolf population will grow 40% annually. So it's
Mm-hmm.
imperative that we do something to help manage them.
Yeah. No, yeah, that makes sense. And I kind of jokingly say this to people, but I'm again, there's nothing really that hunts wolves, except for just nature, just takes them out. And it's a lot like people, to be honest with you. There's
Yeah.
not anything that hunts people. And so we don't manage people, right? Like you don't manage that. And we're pushing into elk and deer and all this other territories, nature in general, because our population is expanding so much.
Yeah.
And so it's very similar with wolves or bears or cats. We're starting to find a lot more encounters. I know here in Utah, we don't, like I said, we don't really have wolves here in this area, but we've got cats. And there's people that catch them on their trail, on their door cameras all the time up on the benches. A buddy of mine 2 years ago got one, an old Tom that was like 3 inches away from the state record, just right, like maybe half an hour from our house.
Oh.
And that's half an hour walking. Like, so yeah, like big cats, and so it needs management. I don't agree with annihilation or eradication of these predators because they're needed, right?
They are needed. They're in the ecosystem, and that's one thing I always say is I respect the heck out of wolves.
Mm-hmm.
They're amazing creatures. They're just built to kill, and they're built to do what they do, and they're beautiful. And I don't want to see them wiped out. I just want to see less of them.
Right. Exactly. And I always tell people too, I'm like, I'm honestly not too concerned about bears being out there. I'm not too concerned about cats. They seem to stay away from people for the most part. Wolves are the ones that really kind of freak me out because I'm like, if you see one, there's others around.
Yeah.
And they're really smart and they're big and they're strong. I'm like, think about if you just had a regular mid-sized dog jump on you, how that feels. You get one that's, standing on his hind legs, 6+ feet tall. That's scary. And the paws on these things. And I brought up Gritty, but I think it was Ryan just killed a wolf this past season, and they showed a picture of it, and his paw was almost as big as Ryan's hand, and Ryan's not a small guy. He's a big dude.
Wolves are huge. And that when somebody's like, I think I saw a wolf, I'm like, well, no, you didn't then, because you would know the second you see a wolf, you're like, holy moly, that thing is giant.
Yeah. Oh yeah. And they just have that look of, just that predator look. Like there's just something about them that, man, I can't imagine the first dogs that were getting domesticated, the wolves that were getting domesticated. Like, how did that even happen? Right? Like
those people
this
must
wolf
have been
comes
brave.
Yeah, it must have been the weak one in the litter or something. They come up to the fire and want some food or something like that because he was starving. But man, I can't imagine like petting a wolf. Like, oh my gosh. There was a guy I saw the other day. I guess he works in a zoo or something, and he raises wolves. Like they find the pups, maybe the parents were killed. And I don't know if it was Canada or something. It wasn't in the US, but he was petting this wolf, and like I don't know what's wrong with this guy. It's like the people that go around and mess with tigers and lions and all that. I'm like, I don't care if you've known them since they were a baby.
Yeah, they're wild.
Like I know my son who's 8 sometimes will hit me and it stings. And I raised him. He's part me. Like, I can't imagine a wolf, even though you've raised him as a baby. I just, and the guy was petting him and it was growling. And he was like, oh, he just growls. Like, that's what he does. And I'm like, I get it, but still, like, I'm not even near you. I'm in the camera here and I can just get the chills of just that low growl that he was doing. I was like, oh man. Like that's not a purr.
That guy
He's not
on the show on Animal Planet that gets attacked in like a couple years.
Oh yeah.
You
Oh,
have to
for sure.
respect those animals.
Hmm. Exactly. Yeah. No. But no, that's amazing. Honestly, tons of respect for people that go out there and you dedicate specific time for this. A lot of people that they may come across them while they're hunting other animals. Um, and I just went up for the first time and got a bear tag for the spring. From what I understand in Idaho, that carries through the fall.
Yep.
You can use it throughout the rest of this calendar year during the certain months that you're allowed to hunt. But I paid for 2 wolf tags just while I was up there. One, I don't really think I'm going to see them, but that's when you're not going to. That's when you do see them, is if you don't have a
Exactly.
tag. But 2, I was like, what's $50 towards conservation? Like, if anything,
Yeah.
it's a donation, right? And so that's something that I've heard from people that hunt Idaho frequently. I've never really hunted Idaho. And so they were just like, hey, if you come up here, snag at least 1, if not 2 wolf tags. And if anything, it's a donation towards, management for other
That
people that
I
will do
always
it.
tell anyone who hunts Idaho, make sure you have a wolf tag in your pocket because you
Yep.
just never know. And yeah, like you said, more than one, because there's oftentimes, if there's one there, there's the rest of the pack. So you might have more than one opportunity.
Mm-hmm. Exactly. Exactly. So, if you're going to go up and you're going to take from the elk population or the deer population, might as well at least contribute monetarily, if not actually getting one. So,
Absolutely.
yeah. So that's what I encourage it, even though I'm not an Idaho native, but I've heard that makes sense. I'd say the same thing about Utah if we had that issue. So, that's something that I just want to put out there for people. It really doesn't cost much, especially if you're going out of state and you're paying thousands of dollars for an elk tag or whatever. What's $50? Like,
Yeah,
what's another
exactly. And they make
$50?
them, like you said, relatively cheap. I think, was it like 30,
Yeah,
31
it was
bucks
something
around
like that.
there for a tag?
Mm-hmm.
So,
Yeah. Yeah. So it's really not bad at all. But that's amazing. So you got into wolf hunting. What is your favorite animal to hunt?
oh, I love spring bear season. I think is probably spring bear is just so much fun, and it's kind of a no pressure hunt. It's a long season. Um, we've got a lot of them here in Idaho, and you can kind of find them milling around. I mean, it's a tough hunt, unless even if you're baiting, it's a tough hunt because you have to hike in your bait. Baiting's its own thing, and it has its own hardships. But I love spring spot and stalk because it's so much fun. And
Yeah.
it's you haven't been out for a while, and it's kind of the first season to get back out there, and so I love spring bear.
Oh, that's awesome. Yeah, we ended up, so the whole trip that we went up was basically we were de-winterizing my buddy's cabin. We were up there by Henry's Lake, I think is what it's called. Up there, it's basically north of Island Park.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, so that little dip, basically the cutout of Montana that is Idaho. And we were 20 minutes from Yellowstone. And so, what we found out though, and I love this, and people out there that are hunters, tap into this little thing here. Find communities around the area that you're going to hunt and join their Facebook groups, and they
Mm-hmm.
post all the wildlife pictures you want. And
They
so,
absolutely do, and you're like, I know where that is. I can,
yep, exactly,
find that.
exactly. That's a great little tip there. I heard that from someone. I can't remember who it was, but my buddy having a cabin up there is part of the community, and so we were up there de-winterizing, and then in the morning and evening we'd go out and we'd try and spot some bears. But we figured out real quick that we were in a grizzly area, not a black bear area. And grizzlies and black bear don't mix from my research and limited experience. And so we kind of gave up on the hunt, to be honest with you, because you can't hunt grizzlies.
Yeah,
And we found over 100 plus elk, tons of deer. We found everything
a
but
black
bears.
bear.
Black bear. Yeah.
But what you're hunting. That's how it always
Yeah,
goes, though, right?
exactly. Exactly. But everyone was posting these pictures of bear encounters that they were having in this area, and we are getting really excited. Then we looked closer, and they all had the hump on the back. They had the elongated snout. You could just tell they were all grizzlies. And so it was one of those. It was like, okay, we'll go trout fishing instead, I guess.
Yeah.
Like
You're like, I want no part in that grizzly bear.
exactly, exactly. Yeah, if I can't hunt them, I'm not going to go after them. And
Yeah.
but that's Idaho's a beautiful state. It's very rugged, very steep. but I think it's a untapped gem for a lot of people that haven't really been to Idaho. And there's a lot of places I haven't explored. I haven't been up to the Selway, which will be next. That's where I plan on going to look for some bears.
Oh,
But yeah, yeah. So spring bear season. I agree with you. The shift of the season is outstanding. This year has been very odd. Again, I don't know how Idaho's been, but it's been a very mild summer, which I love. It's been very humid. We get a lot of rain, and it's just been very cool. Like throughout June, we've had, I think the average temperature has been like mid 70s, which is perfect.
yeah.
But normally, your spring bear season, you'll start, when do you usually start going out? About April, or do you wait till May?
So it opens in some areas in Idaho is April 1st. The majority of them is April 15th. And it goes through some areas June 15th, some areas June 30th. We start as soon as we can, depending on the snow line. And we always put out a bait for friends and family. And if we're unsuccessful spot and stalking, then we'll hunt the bait as well. But this year we didn't even, it's the first year we haven't put out a bait because the snowpack was so high
Mm-hmm.
and we just couldn't get out there. And it was, I think just a couple weeks ago would have been the first time we would have been able to make it to our bait site, and it just wasn't worth it.
Yeah, yeah, it was pretty intense how low the snow line was when we went up there, and it was still pretty chilly. And man, I don't know, this weird this year's been a little weird, but normally you'd go set a bait for friends and family, then you'd go spot and stalk. Do you and your husband take turns because you have kids? How do you guys work that out?
So every spring we take like about a week long hunt where somebody's watching our kids and we go together.
Hmm.
And then we take turns. And so he's either home with the kids or I am, and we just try to give each other enough time. Sometimes he'll go out on a few day hunt and I'll be home with the kids and vice versa, or we'll try and just run up, close to home for day hunts. So yeah,
Oh,
we're pretty good about sharing.
yeah, no,
Because we
that's
know
good.
it's, aside from family, hunting's the most important thing to us. It's just our passion, and so we know how important it is for each other to get out there and have that time in nature and doing what we love.
Exactly. No, perfect. And that's awesome. I love hearing that. My wife is not a hunter, and
You're
so
lucky.
yeah, I hear, yeah, pros and cons, right? But yeah, I try and send her off on her trips, whenever she wants to go somewhere with her sisters or whatever. Make sure she's got that time. So it's similar, right? Where
Yeah.
you're trading, give and take a little bit. But um, how long have you been hunting? I guess how many years have you been actually hunting?
Oh gosh. Like 14 now, I guess.
Okay.
So
Yeah. So
yeah.
that's a good amount of time. You know
Yeah,
what you're
it's
doing.
it's
You
given me
yeah,
time to learn quite a bit now, where I'm not
good.
brand new and like I have no idea what I'm doing anymore.
Yeah. So, well, I asked that because you mentioned that you go out on trips sometimes. Do you go solo, or do you have a group that you go with usually, or one or two other people?
No, I go solo. I don't have, there's not like a female hunting partner I have that I go out with. Justin, my husband, is my main hunting partner, and we do really well together. And I'm his. He has buddies he'll go off and hunt with, but we just hunt together so often we know what move the other's gonna make or what play we want to make. And so um I don't. I there's one a girl I met just a year or two ago, and we were trying to plan a bear hunt this spring to go together, and it just didn't work out. But next spring I'm planning on it. But usually I'm solo when I go without him.
Hmm. Gotcha. So walk us through that a little bit because, and I like to ask the women that I have on that go out solo hunting, how is that for you? Because I know even for men, like if guys out there, if you haven't been out in the woods by yourself, camping overnight, away like miles deep, no cell service, and like no city lights to be seen, go do it. Before you go have a hunting season, I'd say take one of your weekends and go camp by yourself out in the woods. It's an odd experience, even if you don't think you're scared of the dark. There's something that it taps into us naturally, where you all of a sudden it's like your ears get magnified, and I think that's a
Yeah.
natural thing where your eyes can't see anymore, so you've taken that out, and you're not quite daredevil status, but your hearing gets magnified,
You hear
and so
everything and you
yeah,
don't know what it is.
exactly,
For me, I won't lie. I'm such a chicken. I'm always proud of myself when I go out and come back, because
yeah.
even when I'm home in the dark, I'm like, what is that noise? And so being out there, my gun's like right next to me and I'm ready for a fight. I don't think I sleep much, to be perfectly honest, because um, I wish I could be like, oh, it's no big deal. I'm a chicken. It just is what it is. But I still love to do it because it's something personally for me. I'm like, okay, like you can do this, you can do anything. And so it the first time I was like, I don't think I can do that again. And now, it's been years, so it's better, but still I'm a chicken. Even when Justin's there, I'm a chicken.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah. No, that's awesome. Well, at least you're honest about it. You're not like, oh, I'm rough and tough. And I think a lot of dudes do that because it's funny. And I've been through that phase as well, where you go up and you're like, man, deer sound like bears all of a sudden. And then,
Yeah.
you've got all this other stuff going on, and every little thing is itchy because you might have a tick on you or something, like all of these things just start to happen. And, I always laugh because I snore, and so I'm like, well, once I get to sleep, nothing will come by the tent because it thinks I'm a bear, right? Uh,
Unless it's a
but
boar looking for love, then you're in
there,
trouble.
yeah, there you go. That could be a problem. Then I'm just a taco, right? Because I'm all
Yeah.
wrapped up in the sleeping bag. But no, that's something that I like to highlight whenever I can for people is you just like testing your gear. I'm a gear junkie. I love getting out and putting out reviews and stuff for people to spend their money where they can on proper gear. So I
Yeah.
love testing gear, but also you got to test yourself. You got to get up on the mountains when you can. I understand there's some Easterners that come out west. You don't necessarily have mountains like we do out here. And so you can't necessarily test yourself in that elevation. But,
Yeah.
again, test yourself in that quietness. Like and I will say it's weird being out here. I don't know if you've ever been on the East Coast overnight, but where I'm from, when we would camp, you almost had like the white noise in the background constantly because there was cicadas, crickets,
Oh.
everything was going on. And then I came out here, and the first time I stayed out in the woods, it was silent. And I'm like, what? Like, usually silence means there's a predator around.
Yeah.
Like,
And
and so that was
usually,
kind of freaky.
where we are and where you are, there probably is.
Yeah. Yeah. There's probably a cat around or something. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, no, for sure. But that freaked me out. So for the Easterners out there that are used to that cicada, crickets, all of that, bullfrogs, everything else you've got going on at night. Yeah, come out here and try it for one night. It's freaky. It's weird. It's like you put earplugs in, and it's weird. And then when I go back out east, I love sitting out on my this porch that we've got at a lake house for our family, and I'll sit out there. I'll fall asleep on the porch with a fan running, the screened in porch, and just listening to the bullfrogs, cicadas. Like it's amazing. But anyway, so test your stuff, go out, sleep overnight, be okay with the dark, as okay as you can be.
Yeah.
Find ways to be able to fall asleep. Maybe you download a podcast or something like that to listen to get you to be able to fall asleep. Some people take Tylenol PM. I'm not one for, I don't want to be zonked out if something does happen. Like, I don't want
Yeah,
to be in a
that's
medically
me. I'm
induced
like,
sleep.
nope, I want to be alert and ready to
Yeah,
go if I
e-
need to be.
exactly. I want to be alive and well for my last few moments. If need, like, I want to know what's
Then you'll
happening.
be wishing you took some Tylenol PM.
Right. Yeah, exactly. But no, that's good. So for those nights, do you stay up on the mountain or do you come back to your truck or your vehicle and
No,
camp
I'll
there?
stay
How do
up
you
on the
handle it?
mountain
Gotcha.
because I'm lazy and I don't want to hike up.
Yeah.
It's just laziness. I
Yeah.
already did the hiking, so I don't want to come back down, sleep in a truck, and go back up. But no, I stay up there, and it's It's fun. I always tell my husband, I love hunting with you, but there's something to be said on those solo hunts too.
Hmm.
And I really enjoy those as well.
Yeah.
It's fun to have the people there and the banter and just the camaraderie and the excitement if you do get an animal, but it's also really cool to be by yourself when that
Yeah.
happens.
Oh yeah. So let's talk about now when you get up by yourself, you're hunting, then you kill something, now you're packing it out. Do you send out a in reach or something, let them know, hey, something's down? Do you have people come and help out, or do you pack out solo often, or what goes on
It
there?
depends where I am, but I always have my inReach on me, which is, it, it's just safe if you guys are going out alone or even with people and you're out of service. I highly recommend having some sort of
Hmm.
satellite communication device because you just never know.
Right.
But when he can, usually we have some good friends where he can be like, "Hey, animal down, I need to go help," because I mean, I can do it, but I'm pretty tiny and I'm about 5'1" and like 100 pounds. So I don't
Okay.
I'm not very good. I mean, I can do it. I think this year I packed out 3 of the quarters of his dad's elk
Wow.
because he was cutting it up, and so I was just making trips. And it just depends how far out we are and stuff. But yeah, one of my solo hunts was a bear hunt, and I had had a baby 2 weeks prior, so he came and helped me because I was like, "There's no way I'm gonna be able to." I was
Yeah.
like, "I'm not in shape right now."
Right. No. Yeah. No, for sure. Man, that's crazy. You were out 2 weeks after having a baby.
Yeah.
Wow. Man, one, that's dedication, but two, like knowing what happens to the human body after making another human, like your core strength, just even trying to hike up the mountain, like I can't imagine that was very pleasant.
No, it wasn't bad, but with kids and birth and stuff, I lived in Africa for a period of time
Hmm.
as a nurse working for a little bit in an ER, in a government ER, and then I moved with a Maasai tribe and I lived with them in a remote village. But I
Okay.
had the opportunity to watch women there give birth and go through that process.
Yeah.
And in Africa, they have a baby and 5 minutes later they're like, "Hey, you're out the door, like we need to make more room." And so it's to me go and that was before I had kids, and so going into having kids I was like, I'm not going to slow down. We really baby people in America, and I know what the human body is capable of.
Yeah.
And so I just kind of had that mindset, and I think as with most things, it's all about mindset. You need to be in good physical condition, but as you could be in the best physical condition and have the worst mindset and you're not going to get anywhere.
Right.
So to me, it's what's between your ears that you need to work out the most.
No, for sure. But still, I mean, that's a lot of, I agree with the mental game, but at the same time, it's still not easy. That's definitely, I feel like that's not giving yourself enough kudos for that. Cause that's a big deal. You grew a human being for 9 months and then you have that human being. And now 2 weeks later, your body's still recovering. Like, yes, you can get up and go do stuff, but at the same time, it's not, I wouldn't even say that you weren't in shape. You just made a human being. So like, I mean, that's kind of a big deal. But that's awesome that you were able to go up there and bear hunt shortly after that. So I kind of want to jump into this time that you spent in Africa. I didn't realize you spent some time in Africa. What drove you to do that?
I love to travel. It's
Mhm.
one of my other passions. And so it was just an opportunity for me before I was married, before I had kids, to incorporate traveling and nursing. And so I moved over there. I was in Tanzania. Um, and I worked in the ER there, and it was one of the best experiences of my life because I think there were like 3 beds in the ER. We had no supplies whatsoever. I brought over 2 big suitcases full of gloves and bandages and tourniquets, and we were out of those within a day.
Mm.
And so we were grabbing cardboard for splints and shoelaces for tourniquets, and it was
Wow.
just so eye opening. And then moving with the Maasai tribe and living in a dung hut without running water and without electricity was even more so. It just really made me appreciate what we have. And it was, I'd love to go back. Obviously, I can't just, I have two little kids and can't do that at the moment, but I think at some point I'll probably go back. But it was wonderful to see how people live, and they were happy, and it's what they knew, and they got through it. Their medical care was not the best, but it was pretty neat.
Yeah, no, for sure. I that's something that I recommend to people. Find a way to use your skill set and travel overseas to serve other people, because that's something that you can't teach. That's something that you can't learn in school.
No.
Um, you can't learn that experience of how blessed we are here in the United States, to have what we have. And again, whether that be nursing, doctor, dentist, just going and serving, building
Yeah.
houses, serve a mission for your church, something along those lines, but get out of the country for an extended period of time. And even so, if you can, get away from your cell phone, because you will find so many experiences that you would not and you won't encounter here in the United States. I served a mission in Mexico, which they obviously are a little bit more. Um, they're not. I guess Tanzania would be. Is that considered third world?
Yeah.
Okay, yeah. So they're not a third. Mexico's not a third world country, so I didn't experience that amount of poverty. But there were certain areas of Mexico that definitely. Um, I mean, they had a sheet for a door. They had
Yeah.
a tin sheet for a roof. They built their house out of cinder blocks, and I don't know what they insulated with. I don't think there was any insulation. It's just what it is. And they had to carry their water, and do things like that. It's a whole nother experience. Then you come back here and you're like, oh man, it's 72 degrees in the house instead of 69 degrees. Like,
Well, and
oh
it
my
makes you think
goodness.
twice about, like, oh, I don't have cell phone service. Like,
Yeah,
oh, worst day ever.
I know.
And you're
Exactly.
like,
Oh, I
oh
can't
wait, there's
post
people
about
without
this.
running water.
Yeah, yeah, exactly. Oh man. Oh, my grass is a little bit more green today than it was yesterday. Like,
Yeah.
oh, the grocery store was out of my favorite whatever. Like,
It's that, yeah, it's, we complain so often, and I do it. I catch myself doing it, and I have
oh
to
yeah.
stop and be like, wait a second, it could be so much worse. And we complain so much instead of being so grateful for
Hmm.
being able to complain about something so mundane. And yeah, it's
Yeah,
ridiculous. We're silly.
exactly. Exactly. Well, no, I agree with that. And that it's something that everyone should experience. There's a guy, so Ryan Bassham, I don't know if you know him, but he's Peaks. He's one of the owners of Peaks,
Oh, okay.
and he goes every single year for a couple weeks down to Africa. And
No
I can't remember
way.
what the organization is, but he goes to multiple different communities, and they have these blue duffel bags that they bring supplies and medical stuff and all these other items that they need, and they put them on the top, the roof racks of these SUVs that they're driving. And like, it's known in that area when the blue bags come around what's coming. Like, they get excited, they welcome them in, and it's an awesome experience. And I love that he goes out and does that on his own dime. Like, it's not something that he's doing to make money. It's not that
Yeah.
he just goes every year, plans this trip, and tries to highlight the idea of service. And so
Oh,
um I know I personally try and teach my kids the same thing. I'm like, we don't need to complain. We're not complainers here in this house. We are problem solvers.
yep.
So it's okay to feel like it sucks. Voice that opinion, but then start thinking about, how can I make this better? Or dad said no about this. Why can't I do this? And you shift your mindset rather than getting focused on what the problem is. It's something that I feel like we definitely have a lot of issues with nowadays in the US. And I'm sure older generations felt that about us. And now we're seeing that about our kids. But it's definitely something that needs to be highlighted, just as you're going throughout your day, and you find something you want to complain about, instead of sitting there focusing inward, focus outward on other
Yep.
people. And that makes it, I don't know if it's you stop thinking about what your problem is, or you genuinely feel better because you're helping other people. I don't know, But either way, it works. Whatever it is, it works. Serve other people. Your life will be happier. You'll have a bigger smile. That's as simple as it gets, right? So, but that's really cool. I know there's some people. I've got some friends that have been to Africa, and they've all had amazing experiences similar to what you were saying.
Yeah,
So
it's beautiful there. The people are nice, and it's just, yeah, it's a whole different world that you don't get here.
exactly. Well, that's awesome. Well, what's something that I guess you would want to, in general, for hunters maybe getting started? You've been in it for 14 years now. Um, so you've had a lot of experience. And what would you say would be where you would have hunters get started on their journey as they get into hunting?
I would just say, just get out there, spend as much time as you can out on the mountain, because time out there correlates with success. It does. You
Mhm.
can't, I mean, you can if expect to go out on a weekend and get it done, but don't get down on yourself if you aren't successful. And it might take years before you're successful, but just remember to keep at it, because I think people see Instagram and watch YouTube and they're like, "Oh, everybody's successful all the time." And that's just not reality. And be prepared to, you're going to make a bad shot. Everybody does. I don't know a hunter that has been perfect and
Mhm.
not, always has one shot, one kill every time. And so I think that's the one downfall of social media, is a lot of it is portrayed as, oh, it's easy. They just went out there and they're so great. And that's how it should be all the time. And that's not what it is. And some of my best hunts are the ones I've been unsuccessful on.
Yep.
So,
No, I agree with that 100%. It's not, and don't use it as an excuse, right? Obviously, know your stuff, know your equipment, know yourself, train your body, make sure everything's dialed in, the screws are
yeah.
tightened,
And know
everything's
your
wrenched down.
limitations on how far you
Yep.
can shoot and where you can get. If you shoot far,
Yeah.
make sure you can get your body over there to recover the animal.
Yep. Yeah. And you don't want to have that limit, of your training. You want to have limitless fitness up there in the
Yeah.
mountains. And so, but yeah, I would agree. There's, once you've dialed everything in, that's your responsibility. There's still animals. There's still wild creatures. And even though you may be I've been to so many places where I'm like, who didn't tell the elk that there was this little perfect oasis right here? I mean, this is it. It has everything. It's got bedding. It's got shelter. It's got, like, they should be here. Hello. Like I've said that so many times, and just kind of jokingly, because I'm getting a little pissed off that I've hit so many areas that they're not there. And I'm like, who didn't give them the memo? Who didn't read their email today? Come on. Like, what the heck? There's so many times that you will dial everything in. You'll be there, and they just chose a different spot that day.
Yeah. I always say you're competing against Mother Nature, and boy, is she fickle.
Mm.
And
Mm-hmm. She's got a
there's
good
no
sense of
harder
humor.
competition. So,
Yeah, she's got a really good sense of humor, and she's really sarcastic most of the time. Oh yeah, no, I definitely agree with that. Yeah, to this last year, on my buck hunt, it wasn't anything. I wasn't going for trophy. I was going for meat, but it was my first archery buck. Made a shot that, I'd trained at distance, and I think this shot ended up being like 70 yards or so, and straight downhill. And I could have sworn I saw the fletchings bury into it. I saw the snow poof off its back. Like, it was just perfect, ideal morning. Deer were everywhere, and I couldn't find them. There was no blood trail. There was nothing. And, long story short, where I had stopped tracking, he was down in this little ravine. If I had taken 2 more steps, I would have seen him. And
oh,
I came across him later. I found him later. But man, I was, it's just one of those things too. It's like everything you think you trained for everything to be perfect, and it just ends up not being perfect
yeah.
because,
And
again, Mother Nature happens.
yep, it happens. And, it's hard enough to find an animal standing on its feet moving.
Yeah.
Think about when it's on the ground, it's dang near
Oh
impossible.
man. Yep. Exactly. So I guess what's something that maybe we haven't hit on that you'd like to share with the audience,
Ooh,
based on your
gosh.
experience or.
I don't know. I guess an important thing to me about hunting is, especially predator hunting, is educate yourself on it and the numbers and your why, because
Mm,
especially with predators, if you have people questioning why you're doing it, you want to be able to articulate why you do it. And it helps hunting across the board,
mm.
as opposed to just like because I like it, then we have an ongoing battle with anti-hunters, and hunters are constantly fighting to be able to continue to hunt and provide with our way of life. And so being educated on why and numbers and your ecosystem and what's going on with all the management plans is very important.
I'd agree with that. It's very important to have an educational, not an emotional conversation with people,
Mm-hmm.
whether that's getting someone into hunting, whether that's a non-hunter, whether that's an anti-hunter. There's, people will lump it into kind of a black and white, like there's hunters and anti-hunters, but there's also a huge population of non-hunters
Mm-hmm.
that don't really care.
Yeah.
They don't think about it. And so having those conversations on a regular basis, rather than being, you feel like you're weird when, I know there's times for me when people will come to me and they're like, oh, how do I do this for fitness? Because you're the fitness guy, right? And for me at first, it's like, like, I don't want to talk about this right now. I want to have the barbecue,
Yeah.
like, but it's in those moments where I've had some of the best conversations with people, and you find a way to, same with hunting, you find a way to not go so far in depth that it bores them,
Yeah.
but also not be the jerk that's like, I don't want to talk about this right now, because that's
Exactly.
going to push them away even more. And then, or just getting emotional when they show you something like, oh, your buddy was such a killer or whatever, like you just like to kill for fun. Don't get emotional about that
Yeah.
unless you really do. Then if if you really are that way, then, I probably don't really want to be your friend either. Uh, but don't get emotional. Have an educated conversation with people where you're genuinely
Yeah.
saying, look, this is why I do it. Maybe even invite them over. Don't trick them into having deer burgers and elk burgers unless it's a really good friend of yours. Like, you can judge that, but like, don't trick your neighbors into, oh, we're going to have the best burgers. And then they come over and find out it's deer. Like,
Yeah.
don't be that guy either. Like, you just be educational and have a good knowledge base for yourself. So that you can talk to these people about it. I compare it to when your kids say why. You've got little kids, so you understand this. Why this, why that, why that. And what they're doing is peeling away the onion, getting down to the core. And a lot of parents get frustrated with that. And I've figured out why as a parent. It's because we don't have the answer.
Yeah.
That's why parents get frustrated. They're like, well, it just cuz, you get to that point. And I caught myself as an earlier on parent figuring that out. Like, I don't need to act like that. I just need to tell them, look, I don't know, but let's go look it up together. We've got a
Yeah.
supercomputer in our hands. Let's go look it up. Or while we're driving, they of course want to ask all the detailed questions while you're driving, right?
Yeah.
That's
You're like,
that's
oh
the
boy.
best. You're like, and so, just, hey, remind me when we get home, we'll look it up, right? And that's so much better than, oh, just cuz, right? Same thing with hunting. If you don't know something, it's some kind of news article, whatever they bring to you, say the same thing. Honestly, I can't really speak on that because XYZ, whatever your reason is, I don't know it, but
Yeah.
I'll get back to you, and then actually follow up. Don't just
Well,
leave it hanging and avoid it.
and that's another thing. As a new hunter, don't be afraid to ask questions,
Mm-hmm.
because you won't know unless you ask.
Yeah.
And again, social media can be cruel sometimes, but don't don't worry about those
Yeah.
people. Don't be afraid
Yeah.
to ask questions.
Yeah, those people aren't real hunters anyway.
Yeah.
So, or they're the old crusty guys that are on their way out. So,
Yeah.
it's just like, if you do find people that are not accepting your questions, there's so many good resources out there. If you're listening to this and you've had that experience where maybe you had some jerks or whatever, maybe your group of friends is just all about getting together and drinking beers and you want to have a better experience with hunting, feel free to reach out to me. I'm going to offer Kate as well
Yeah.
because you're here. But ask questions. We've got some amazing amazing individuals in the community that we could point you in the right direction. Maybe, I don't know a ton about whitetail, but I know some amazing guys that go out there, absolutely love it and crush it at whitetail hunting, and they can walk you through the steps. I still have yet to put an elk down with my bow. So I'm still inexperienced in that area, but I know what to look for, and I've come really close enough that I could walk you through some beginner stuff, and then I'll point you to the experts, right? Find good resources because they're out there.
Yeah,
Don't
there's
get
so much
discouraged.
out there these days.
Oh yeah, exactly. And then, again, Kate's an amazing one too. If you're looking for wolf hunting tactics and things like that, you've got it nailed. Are you doing a seminar?
Yeah, so it's called the Western Wolf Academy, and it's this year, July 6th to the 9th in Idaho. And it's myself, my husband, and Tom Snyder from Stuck in the Rut. And we're just teaching you. It's going to be a small group. I think our maximum is going to be 20. We're going to cut it off at 20 people. And we're on this big private ranch with cabins, and all meals are included, but we're going to teach you how to hunt wolves, what their howls mean, their behavior, how to hunt them in different seasons, how to hunt them in thick timber or wide open spaces, and some shooting techniques. Because there's not a lot of education on how to hunt wolves yet. Because they were just delisted in 2009, so it's fairly new. And yeah, I think it's less than 1% of hunters will ever successfully harvest a wolf, and
Wow.
like less than a quarter of that 1% are doing so intentionally. Meaning most people, they're out elk hunting and a wolf runs by and it's opportunity.
Wow. That's crazy. So I will link that down below. I think this podcast might come out after your summit, but we'll definitely post about it, and then we'll keep you guys posted. Again, your wealth of knowledge as far as wolf hunting goes, I'm really excited about that summit for you guys.
Well, thank you.
And I agree that it's the education that needs to get put out there. Now, is he the one that was run down by a brown bear?
So his brother,
That's who it was.
Trevor that was his brother, and his sister. I think they shot it, and then their rifle malfunctioned, and it
froze up, and it jammed. Yeah, that's a whole nother. You guys go look up that story if you haven't seen that yet. My goodness, that brown bear closed the distance so fast, and it was a couple hundred yards, and he just came right at him. He knew what to go for. So, anyway, that's awesome. Again, Kate, I really appreciate your time. Really, really appreciate your time coming on here and sharing everything that you've experienced through your hunting career. After the summit, we'll have to do a recap, see how that went, and then if you guys are going to keep doing it, we'll definitely keep pushing it out there for people that are interested in getting into wolf hunting. And where can people find you?
I'm on Instagram at Kate Small Outdoors. There's a fake account out there that I think pops up before mine, actually. And then we are starting a YouTube channel, and I think that's just going to be Small Outdoors. And our bear hunt from this spring should be on there shortly. So
awesome. That's exciting. Well, cool.
Yeah. Well, thank you so much for having me on. I so appreciate it.
Yeah, of course. Thank you for your time. I know you're busy. You've got lots of stuff going on. So thanks for sharing. And guys, I'll leave the links down below where you can find Kate and her husband and all their adventures and all their knowledge and everything they've got going on. Definitely go check them out. And like I always say, guys, get out, live your life, and love it.